Hello friends, welcome back to My Kitchen, My Rules. Now, sometimes you need to make a dessert that will look pretty and does not put any heat in your kitchen. Am I right? Because you know in the South, as we say, it ain't the heat, it's the humidity. And really it's both. So today we're gonna make an Italian no-bake cake. Now for those of y'all that are actually Italian, I don't have the foggiest idea if this is an Italian restaurant recipe or not. It probably is not in an Italian restaurant, because it came from Betty Feezor's cookbook. Now, I love Betty Feezor, as y'all know, and if you want to come see her memories, her studio is in my conference room at my real estate office, and I am delighted for you to come play dress up. There's aprons that another fellow realtor actually made for you to wear in your pictures, so come ahead on. And in the meantime, let's make some of her wonderful retro recipes, because she was the icon of the South. So the first thing you need is some Ladyfingers, and if you don't know where to find these at the grocery store, here's a little secret for you. Ask the lady in the deli, because for whatever reason, in most grocery stores, Ladyfingers live in the produce section. I will never understand that, but whatever. So ask about them, and if you've never had a Ladyfinger, they're kind of like angel food cake looking things. Actually, they kind of look like mini hot dog buns, but they are not. They are not at all. So what we're going to do is cut them half in two, and by that I mean we're going to make them how's it to describe it? Betty says crossways, I say half in two, and the reason we do that is so we can put them inside the edge of your round cake pan. So you see, I'm just going to set them right in here like a nice little group of soldiers around the edges. Actually, you know what? I'm going to turn it the other way so it'll be pretty when I turn it out. I probably should have used a springform pan, because Betty calls for a round cake pan. I don't know that they had springform pans in the common usage back then, because, you know, in the 60s and 50s, there was not a big box store for everything. So let's just give the shout out that they had it so much better back then, y'all. All right, so that looks about right to get those in there. So Shazam, there's your crust. Now look, don't you feel like a genius already? Got that in the edge of your pan. That is step one. Now step two, let's just set that to the side. Now you need 2 eggs. And if you're curious about how the colors of mine are different, that's because my chickens make Easter eggs. And did you know that you can actually order those kinds of chickens? I got, look, I'm running my mouth, but look how good those shells are, because I give my chickens oysters, which makes their shells stronger. And I got my chicken flock from Cackle Hatchery, and they're amazing. So you should totally consider home poultry. Or if you live around here and you want some eggs, look, we got eggs coming out our freaking ears. So I am glad for you to have some. And I Swanee, I can tell the difference in production, commercial eggs and home eggs, because these shells are crazy strong. All right, there we go. The only thing about home eggs is you have to kind of watch the ratios, you know what I mean? All right, so we have 2 eggs. We need 1.5 sticks of butter, roughly at room temperature, but because I forgot to set mine out before I needed to make it, I had to put it in the microwave for about 30 seconds, and that's a little bit on the soft side, but that's all right. So we're gonna drop that in here with the eggs, and then we're gonna, this 1/2 stick here. Now Betty called for margarine. I do not use margarine. I mean, obviously, I have my own chickens. I don't want to use anything but real ingredients if I can possibly help it. And I know I bought Ladyfingers, so you can go ahead and judge if you want. That's fine. I really don't mind if you judge me anymore. I'm kind of over it right now. And so then we have, what cake would be complete without Dixie Crystals? And did y'all know that they make confectioner sugar? Well, of course you do. You watch my channel, so you're the very advanced crowd here. But seriously, it's like air or angel dust. Y'all don't have to call it Dixie Crystals, call it angel dust, because this is the real deal. I mean, nothing added to it. It's just really good sugar. All right, so we have 1 cup of confectioner sugar, which you ought to keep on hand anyway. It's how you make your own frosting. I think I made that in a previous episode. I'll have to go back and look. If I didn't, I can whip some up for y'all, because I made some seriously good buttercream with my Dixie Crystals. All right, now we gotta mix up the eggs and the sugar and the butter. And now you'll see why I needed it to be room temperature. I probably could have gotten out my stand mixer or my hand mixer, but you know, I thought the whisk looked fun, and I might get some upper arm workout, because these bingo wings are killing me. But yet here we are. So I'm just gonna make a nice color here. And by the way, see how pretty that color is on that? Love to move my camera over here. See how pretty that color is on that yolk? That's because my chickens get lots of special treats like herbs. I got a whole herb garden going for them. Did you know you can change the color of chicken yolks? I did not know that until I started getting educated on my home chickens. And here we are. Just like in real estate, you got to learn something every day. Same thing with raising chickens. All right, so we're gonna do this until the lumps are out, because obviously you don't want lumps in your cake mix because it will taste weird and some bites will be more buttery than others. All right, the next ingredient you're gonna need is a half a cup of unsweetened cocoa. Doesn't matter which brand you get, just make sure it's not full of a bunch of stuff you can't pronounce. Today we've got Trader Joe's. I usually buy Hershey's, but Trader Joe's was on sale, and you know, with the cost of grocery store stuff continuing to skyrocket, you got to watch your pennies. Let's get the quarter cup so we can get it out of here. All right, 1 cup. And the reason I want you to make sure you get unsweetened, you just put a cup of sugar in, y'all. If you get the sweetened stuff, the ratios will be off because it will have sugar instead of cocoa for a part of it. And then we're also going to put in some flavoring. Now here's the scoop on this Italian cake. You can use whatever flavoring you want. Vanilla, you could use almond. I'm using lemon, and check this out. So you're wondering why that has a homemade thing on it. My friend Penny made this for me. You want to talk about like the most thoughtful gift I may have ever received. She made me a whole collection of extracts, and I just about cried myself to pieces because that was just so crazy. And it's really, really good. But anyway, you have freedom here. Use any flavor you want. I like lemon because I do. And then we're gonna go ahead and mix those in. And then the next thing we're gonna add, you ready for this? A whole box of Nilla wafers. I know I'm like a study in contrast on this recipe because some is home stuff and some is store-bought preservative stuff, but here we are. But before we toss in our Nilla wafers, we're gonna have to crush them. You know what that means? That means that if you friends have had a rough day, a rough week, a rough month, if you're frankly over everybody you've ever met and you start stirring like this, you don't have to stir like that. Stir happily, because what you're fixing to do is take all of your frustrations out on your Nilla wafers. All right, so that's all mixed in. Smells really good. It's a little bit on the lumpy side, but there's nothing, something else will cover up. All right, there we go. Now, here's how I crush. You could get a paper sack if you want. I'm gonna use a Ziploc bag. All right. This is the epitome of home cooking. But I will tell you, this is where I'm finally breaking free of not being my mother, although she is probably the best human I've ever known. But I grew up with grandparents and parents who spent, there's your Nilla wafers, right? Don't buy the off-brand of this, y'all. Sometimes you can buy the off-brand, not with Nilla wafers and not with Dixie Crystals. But anyway, my grandparents, of course, lived through the Great Depression, and so they did not throw anything away. And my mother, being the youngest of those 8 kids, did not throw anything away either. So I think you should raise your hand if in the comments you grew up in a house where there was a Ziploc bag hanging on the kitchen spigot where you rinsed it out and reused it. Because that's how we rolled. All right, you ready? You can get a meat tenderizer if you want to, or you can just use the sheer force of your will. And if you need to close that ring on your Apple Watch, start you a little exercise. And then this recipe will give you all that you need. So we're gonna crush them. Move that bowl out the way so we can see what we're doing here. All right. Okay, now full disclosure, I could have used a food processor for that. Would have been much faster. It also would have been another thing to clean. And by the way, I'm a realtor working in the weirdest market ever. So I kind of needed that. So anyway, we're going to dump that into our cake batter. Now, you may or may not need the whole kit and caboodle, okay? Betty's recipe only called for a few Nilla wafers. Now, I have made this with varying amounts of it in my past. Is that a piece of eggshell? No, that's a piece of butter. Always smart to check. So anyway, I'm going to add them in until I get the consistency to where I want it to be. Now, nuts are optional for this recipe. If you want to add some nuts, I think pecans would be good, or pecans, or pecans if you want to. However you say it is fine. And you could add some walnuts if you're a walnut fan. That is not quite enough, so let's put a little more in there. And I'll show y'all as we go how you want that consistency to look. And by the way, it's not perfectly crushed. I did leave some larger chunks because my crowd really likes Nilla wafers. So that way they get a little something for them, hey? Now you're finally figuring out why you don't have to bake it, right? Because the Nilla wafer is already cooked when you get it. See, that's the secret here. And you just got to remember that once upon a time, processed foods were like the biggest luxury. Isn't that wild? And now we've moved into an era where it's the homegrown chickens and vegetables and meat that are a luxury. How about that? All right, so now I know I've got it about the right consistency when it's hard to come off the whisk. So let's just show you what that is. It's like, yay. So it doesn't look so great. It tastes really good. Okay, so now we are going to get our pan with our crust we already made. Oh, that chocolate tastes good. And you're just gonna let's get a spatula. We're gonna scrape it right into the middle, and then it's gonna go into the refrigerator where it can stay for a long time. Now, for those of y'all that are wildly concerned about the fact that there's raw eggs in here, I will just tell you that that's kind of why you want to get eggs from somebody that you trust and know, or from places that are good. And don't at me on this with your concerns, because I'm not really, I'm good. My immune system's good. I know where my things came from. So anyway, also Betty and them probably didn't think about it, to be quite honest. Let's just dump it in the middle here. And then the last thing we'll do after it chills is we'll put some Cool Whip on top, or some real whipped cream. I will probably use real whipped cream after it chills and sets up here. And see, look how lovely that is. Now, Betty's recipe says it keeps indefinitely. I don't know that it really keeps indefinitely. And I'm kind of feeling like I probably should have put some parchment paper on the bottom of this tray, because this is going to be a mess coming out of here. But all right, those things happen sometimes. We might just get spoons and eat it right directly out of here, because when you're eating in your own house with your family, sometimes you just hand out spoons. Am I right? I'm right. Okay. Let's get that in here. All right, so that is what it looks like before you put the whipped cream in. So pretty much like a chocolate pie with a ladyfinger crust. And after it chills, put the whipped cream on, so I'll see you in a minute. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I was not watching the clock. I know. And I might have been on the phone. I know. And I didn't get my whipped cream made, and I'm about to have people come through that door in about 2 seconds flat. And so that's why you keep Cool Whip in the freezer, y'all. So we're going to just put a topping on this cake with some Cool Whip. And it was in the freezer, and you're supposed to thaw it on your countertop. And I know what the instructions say. I just went on the floor. I know what the instructions say, but sometimes you have to ignore the instructions and just slather some around so that it doesn't look like you totally forgot. And that's a frozen piece. And this is just winding up being wildly unattractive. And I can't let that stay in the floor because, oh, let's get a little bit more. Don't need a whole lot. I don't like a lot of whipped cream on mine, especially when it's not whipped cream, it's Cool Whip. Well, I'm in the South. We use Cool Whip about as often as we use everything else, I reckon. And then let's get this on here. And hope the doorbell does not ring before. I got to go change clothes too. Y'all ever had that happen? I got to change clothes. Oh. I mean, you know, not that anybody would judge me for having on my very fine Carolina garb here, especially since we sent Coach K home with a loss forever. All right, now, I don't know, it says True Whip. I don't even know if that's made by the Cool Whip people or not, so don't y'all call me out if it is. I don't know. We need to dress it up just a wee tiny bit. So where'd my bar of Baker's chocolate go? I always have a bar of Baker's semi-sweet laying around. Look, when you buy a chocolate though, get the unsweetened cocoa. Do not get the unsweetened chocolate bar. That's not good for anybody. And so we're just gonna grab the edge here. And I'm gonna get the big side of my grater and just run a little bit down here. So we get a few little shavings on here to make it look fancier than it is. All right. Now don't y'all tell anybody that I had to use Cool Whip, because here we are. But I imagine they'll eat it anyway and they'll enjoy it. So there, my friends, is your 1960s era retro Betty Crocker Italian no-bake cake. I can't wait to hear if you try it and enjoy it. Make sure that you subscribe for more recipes from this one realtor's kitchen over here in North Carolina. And I'll see you next time.